So first, again, some opening remarks by Mr. Yang Guang. Friends from the press, good afternoon. We are having this press briefing to the media before we start. I hope that you will relay our regards to Hong Kong citizens. Last week, we held a press conference here to brief you on our position and views on Hong Kong situation. It was followed with deep interest by people in Hong Kong, in the world, as well as people on the mainland. From their warm response, we get a sense of strong support for the one country, two systems principle and basic law, for the rule of law in Hong Kong, for the law-based administration by the Chief Executive Carrie Lam and the SAR government, and for the strict law enforcement by Hong Kong police. But at the same time, we are sad to see that violent activities and illegal activities continued over the last week. On 5th of August, the opposition tried to stage a mass strike to bring the city to a standstill. Such a grave situation has made one point clear to a growing number of people, that is, chaos must not continue in Hong Kong. So today, I'm ready to share with you how we see the current situation in Hong Kong and what to do about it. As many of you know that the protests taking place in Hong Kong over the past 2 weeks have gone way beyond the scope of the freedom of assembly and demonstration and morphed into extreme acts of violence, with renewing forms and escalating intensity and devastation. It is indeed an outrageous sight to behold. A small number of radical demonstrators have pinned down the police as their targets, using weapons from bricks and metal sticks to deadly weapons such as smoke bomb, petrol bomb, and arrows. They even attempted arson. Some people even called for the use of fatal attacks against police on the website. Such activities have posed serious danger to the life and property of the Hong Kong police and the members of the general public. Since 9th of June, nearly 500 people were injured in the violent clashes, including 139 police forces. And a greater cause for indignation and alert is the fact that some radical elements tore up the basic law and defaced the national emblem. At nightfall of the 3rd of this month, several shameless thugs seized the national flag of China from a pole and flung the flag into the sea. This is a serious violation of the law and the national dignity, and a serious challenge to the red line of the one country, two systems principle. On 5th of August, the opposition staged a strike, causing the cancellation of about 250 flights, a 5-hour suspension of 8 train services, and the disruption to the Hong Kong Tunnel and several transport trunk lines. The radical elements hurled Molotov cocktails against the police and committed arson on many sites. At 7 that evening, radical elements again went to Tin Sha Tsui to seize the national flag, to hurl it into the sea, acting in the most crazy and outrageous manner. They will have to face justice someday in the future, to be held accountable for their shameless acts.
For the nearly 2-month demonstrations, especially violent attacks, have caused serious impacts on the economic development and people's well-being in Hong Kong.
Statistics of the SAR government show that the major economic indicators for the first 6 months of this year all declined, and the GDP of Q2 only registered a real-term growth of 0.6%, pointing to visible downward pressure. Already 18 countries and regions have issued travel advisories against Hong Kong, and the retail and tourism sectors have borne the brunt, evidenced by the slump in the retail sales and hotel room occupancy rates. Worse still, the current situation in Hong Kong has seriously dented the confidence of international investors. They have openly talked about their grave concerns about the business climate in Hong Kong. International rating agency also issued a warning, saying that the ongoing demonstration and violent clashes have obstructed the normal economic activities of Hong Kong, which might affect the ratings of Hong Kong.
It's important to make it clear that in the current disorder in Hong Kong, at the forefront are some radical and violent forces. Caught in the middle are some misled but well-intentioned citizens. Behind the scene are anti-China forces from in and outside Hong Kong, instigating radical and violent forces to stir up trouble in Hong Kong. They blatantly emboldening the violent and radical forces and covertly or overtly provide coordination, guidance, and funding. They confound right and wrong and prompt distorted notions on civil disobedience or even violence is the only way to resolve issues, to whitewash and egg on the radical and violent activities. They provoke radical forces to engage in uncooperative movement and exercise maximum pressure in an attempt to plunge the whole of Hong Kong in political dispute to escalate social tension. Ironclad facts show that the nearly 2-month-long radical demonstration is of a grave nature and highly damaging. It has caused grave impact on the prosperity and stability in Hong Kong and is pushing Hong Kong to the verge of a very dangerous situation. Then what's next? This is a major issue on the mind of every individual who cares about Hong Kong. The Hong Kong situation has developed to such a grim stage today. It's imperative for all of the people in Hong Kong to end violence and restore order. First, we want to call on the Hong Kong citizens that it is the time for you to stand up and firmly protect your beautiful homeland. Just like the senior man who turned down the demonstrators' leaflet at the airport, say no to ignorance, bias, and bully. Just like those commuters to catch trains to their workplace, to shout angrily at those protesters that block train doors and disrupted rail services, just like those loving moms who took their disgruntled kids back home and scolded them and asked them, have you seen those heavyweight figures who instigate young people to engage in violence against police? Have they sent their kids to the demonstrations? Or I urge the Hong Kong people to think about one issue, one question calmly. That is, when things spiral out of control, who will be the victims and who will benefit from such a situation? We would like to say to the SAR government, judicial institutions, and police, At this crucial moment bearing on Hong Kong's future, every department and institution must take protecting rule of law as their own mission, fulfill their responsibilities, strictly enforce the law, and uphold judicial fairness. Show no leniency to violence and breach of law. Absence of due punishment against breach of law will chip away at the sanctity of law and erode the very foundation of rule of law. Here, let me make it very clear that the central government's support for Chief Executive Carrie Lam is firm and steadfast. Opposition's attempts to force Chief Executive Carrie Lam to resign will lead nowhere. We hope to express our support for Hong Kong police for their resolute action to protect rule of law and enforce law. People across the nation firmly support your actions, and we hope that people in Hong Kong across various sectors will see through the true nature of the situation, firmly support Chief Executive Carrie Lam in leading the SAR government in law-based governance, firmly support Hong Kong police in strictly enforce the law, and firmly support SAR government departments and judicial institutions in duly punish the violent and criminal forces. We want to warn a handful of brazen, violent, and criminal actors and the meddling hands behind the scene. Any attempt to play with fire will only backfire. As for their punishment, it's only a matter of time. To all those who engaged in violence and crimes, no matter who commit such a crime, they will be held accountable, including those who are behind the scene, who organize and instigate such crimes behind the scene. I want to warn all those criminals, don't misjudge the situation or take restraint as a sign of weakness. Don't underestimate Hong Kong society's powerful force for justice in protection of rule of law and security and order. Don't underestimate the firm resolve and tremendous power by the central government and people across China to maintain prosperity and stability in Hong Kong and safeguard the fundamental interests of China. At the end of the day, the future of Hong Kong lies in the hands of all the Chinese people, including Hong Kong people. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Yang Guang, for your opening remarks. Now it's time for questions and answers. Well, today's press conference will have simultaneous interpretation services, and for questions, they will be interpreted consecutively. I will give the first question to the Hong Kong journalist.
你好，来自香港有线电视的，就想知道行政长官林郑月娥昨天形容反修例诉求已经变质，他说有些人要搞革命，挑战国家主权。有评论认为，特首将民间的5大诉求打成港独，中央是否都认同特首的那个说法呢？还有就是香港上街的人都是要搞革命吗？中央怎么看？如果反修例风波持续，比如说在10月1号之前，中央是否会坐视不理，不排除出动驻军去处理？第二方面的那个问题是，就是港澳办在第一次记者会上有向香港警队致敬，刚才的那个阳光发言人上也再次向香港警队致敬。这个言论有意见认为是令到警方更加是恃宠生骄甚至是加强滥用暴力去拘捕市民。港澳办对此有何评价？警队应否有些检讨他的执法手段，甚至对近日的那个警民冲突向市民道歉？谢谢。
From TVB. My question is, yesterday at her press conference, Chief Executive Carrie Lam described the protests against the Fugitive Offenders Bill as something against the government, and she also described the 5 major concerns and demands as some excuses for Hong Kong independence, and calling those protesting on the street as calling for independence. Does the central government agree with such characterization of the demonstration today? And if such demonstrations or protests continue or drag on until the October the 1st this year, will the central government sit idly by, or will the garrison forces in Hong Kong intervene? And my second question is about the police in Hong Kong. During the first press conference by the State Council Hong Kong and Macau Affairs Office, Mr. Yang Guang paid tribute to the police forces in Hong Kong, and just now in your opening remarks, you again paid tribute and appreciated the efforts of Hong Kong police. Will such remarks send a signal to the Hong Kong police as an excuse for them to abuse their power and arrest more citizens or protesters? How would you comment on such a situation? And as for the recent escalation of tensions between the police and the protesters, does the police need to apologize to the people for their acts? What's your comment? Thank you for your question. Well, you have raised 2 questions, but I think it's more than 2 questions. The 2 central messages include, first, the remarks by Chief Executive Carrie Lam at the press conference here today, and the second is some comment on the actions by Hong Kong police. Let me first respond to your first question. I have noted the press conference by Chief Executive Carrie Lam. She said that Hong Kong is on the verge of a very dangerous situation. She also made it clear that she will not resign. And she also said that the rule of law is the only solution to end violence. As for her remarks, I fully agree with what she said, and I highly appreciate her sense of responsibility. In my opening remarks, I went into details the blatant acts, including those violent and criminal actions in Hong Kong. However, such actions have not been effectively checked. Well, facts speak louder. Facts have told us some basic points. First, what is happening in Hong Kong has turned from a peaceful demonstration to some brazen criminal actions by a handful of people. And the second point is that such a situation has turned from peaceful expression of opinion to challenge the principal bottom line of one country, 2 systems. I have noted that at yesterday's press conference, Chief Executive Carrie Lam also mentioned some slogans by some protesters as to rejuvenate Hong Kong by using some revolution. Well, I want to ask you a question. What is the nature of Hong Kong? Hong Kong is a special administrative region of China. What kind of society would you want Hong Kong to return to? From their slogans, you can see their political motivations. What they want is to challenge the fundamental principle of one country. And in the face of such brazen crimes and grave challenge against one country, two systems, it's very clear that the situation has morphed into a totally different nature. The central government will never allow any violent attempt to push Hong Kong to a dangerous situation. So the first order task now is to end violence and restore order. The central government firmly supports Chief Executive Carrie Lam in leading the SAR government in law-based governance and firmly supports Hong Kong police in strictly enforce the law. This is my response to the first question. As for the second question, comment on the police. You mentioned in your question that the police recently strictly enforced the law with resolute actions. Their adherence to the law, their professionalism are highly appreciated. I've been thinking about the very duty of the police. Well, Hong Kong is known for the rule of law. All the people in Hong Kong take pride in their core value of the rule of law. What's the rule of law all about? That's about firm adherence to the law and strict enforcement of the law. Then what is the duty of the police? Whenever the breach of law or crimes occur, the police will take resolute actions swiftly to restore order. Whoever commits crimes with any pretexts have no excuse to whitewash their crime, because violence is violence, crime is crime. Any breach of law should be stopped and dealt with. So the Hong Kong police acts in full accordance with their realm of capabilities and responsibilities. Let me reiterate here that we pay tribute to Hong Kong police for their strict enforcement of law in defiance of pressure. Thank you.
谢谢主持人。中央广电总台央视记者提问：那么，在香港游行示威活动中呢，有大量的青年人冲在了前面，甚至不乏激进暴力行为。那么，对于香港青年人的问题，请问发言人怎么看？谢谢。
From CCTV, well, my question is that in the demonstrations in Hong Kong, a great number of young people are at the forefront, and some even committed radical and violent actions. So how do you comment on the issue of the young people in Hong Kong?
我想请我的同事来回答一下吧。
I will refer this question to
谢
my
谢这位记
colleague.
者的提问。
Thank you for your
我们
question.
注意到了，
We have
在
noted
一连串的
that
示威游行和暴力冲突当中，
in a
确
series
实有一
of
些年轻的面孔，
demonstrations and
而且有一些人
radical and
还
violent
公然地违反了法
activities,
律。
Some are the young people, and some even violated the law. We are saddened by such actions. Or those with an impartial view can see clearly that some people intend to stir up in Hong Kong and manipulate the situation behind the scenes. They are leading the young people on the erroneous path and take these young people as the pawns and fodder of their political schemes. Or such forces rely on the foreign support and want to achieve their intentions at the expense of the young people and prosperity and stability of Hong Kong. Their attempts and intentions will be fully exposed, and the young people will see clearly the nature of such people. Well, of course, the recent situation in Hong Kong has also laid bare the problems in the national education in Hong Kong. It's important for the young people to realize the importance of patriotism, to love their country and love Hong Kong. That's the first lesson they have to learn. Regrettably, there is an absence of such a lesson in many schools in Hong Kong. And when many students and young people engage in demonstrations, who is to blame? The young people or their parents or the teachers? It's important to enhance the education on their awareness of their citizenship, their history, culture, and arouse their patriotism. The whole society need to care about the healthy growth of the young people and foster a steady and enabling environment for their growth. Well, the young people in Hong Kong are part of the young population in China. The central government pays a lot of attention to the healthy growth of Hong Kong's young people. We recognize the many difficulties and perplexities facing the Hong Kong young people. Well, we have our sympathies and understanding, but such issues cannot be resolved by violence or even breach of law. We invite young people in Hong Kong to travel more to the mainland or other parts of the world. They will come to realize that our country is at a stage of realizing the great renewal of the nation and on the path of great prosperity. If they can put their growth in the context of the nation's development, they will see that they have a bright future. And I want to call on the young people in Hong Kong, especially those who have engaged in the demonstrations, to stop such activities. It's never too late to correct your mistake. Don't take another step on the erroneous path.
谢谢主持人，我是新加坡海峡时报的记者，请允许我用英语来发问。China has repeatedly accused the U.S. of being the black hand behind the Hong Kong protests, without substantiating these claims. What evidence do you have of this? And also, who are these so-called foreign-backed protesters that you talk about, and how are you dealing with them? 谢谢。
新加坡海峡时报记者提问：中国一直称有外部的黑手在卷入香港当前的事态，那么一直没有具体的阐述，是以什么样的证据来证明这一点？那么中方有任何证据吗？另外就是哪些抗议者是外部势力支持的抗议者，准备怎样处理他们？谢谢。
谢谢啊，你提出了一个很大的问题。
Thank you for your question. It's a fairly big
我
question.
想呢，在这之前，外交部发言人已经多
Well,
次就这个问
previously,
题
the spokespersons of the Foreign Ministry
既然你问到了
made
呢，我也想
comments
在就这个问
on
题呢
many
也做一个
occasions on this issue.
回答。
Well, let me say the following.
这个我们可以从公开的报道当中去
So
寻找
from
你所说的那个
public
他们干预
reports,
的
we can
证据
find
或者说
evidence
线索。
of their
应该说，
interference
从2月份
or clues for such
逃
interference.
犯条例修订工作启动以
Since
来，
the start of the
一些西方政府
amendment
和
bill,
台湾当局
some Western politicians and
指手画
Taiwan
脚，
authority
发表了
came
很
to
多
the front
颠倒黑
stage,
白、不负责任
pointed
的言论。
fingers, and made irresponsible remarks confounding right and wrong. Well, let me make some
比如说
brief
3月
reviews.
21日，
For
美国国务
example,
院
on
发
21st
表2019
March,
美国
the
香港
State
政策法
Department of
报
the
告
US
及网
issued
面大法期
the
间，他以
US
倒退
report
2
on Hong
来
Kong
形容香
policy
港的
law,
倒
and
退自治，
it used
并
the
多次
word
发表声明，
backpedaling
妄言
to describe
修
the
例
high
威
degree
胁了
of
香港的法治，侵蚀了
autonomy in
一
Hong
国两
Kong,
制，
and it issued several
3月
statements
下旬，
to comment
美国
on the amendment
很
bill,
高调的
saying that it has eroded on one country and two systems.
邀请了一些
And
反对派的
also in
头面人物
March,
访美，
the United
并且
States,
安排了副总统
on an
和国务卿会
unprecedented
见，
arrangement, invited the leading figures of the
随后不到
opposition
2个月，
on their high-profile visit to the
又
US
分别会
and
见了反对派的
arranged
头面人物
meetings
所带领的
between such figures and the
反
government
对引渡
officials.
条例美加团，
And later on, the United States organized a
美国
so-called
一些议员
anti
重提所谓
amendment
香港
bill
人权
delegation
民主
to
法
the US and
案，
Canada.
妄称要定期检讨或
And
调整
later,
对港政策，
The
对
some
相关官员
US
实施制裁。
congressmen
6月，
mentioned again the Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy
佩
Act,
洛西
and
说了一句
Nancy
著名的话，
Pelosi
说香港
made a
发
quite
生的
famous
游行
comment
示威是一场
regarding
美
the
丽的公主
demonstrations in Hong Kong as a beautiful sight
6
to
月
behold.
英国
On
前
June
外交大臣亨特
25th, the
要求
former
香港
Foreign Secretary of
就
the
6月
UK,
12
Jeremy
进
Hunt,
行调查，
demanded
确
Hong
保
Kong
美
to
国方面
conduct
不
investigations
分
on
别
the
会见
June
了一个
12th conflict.
公然议论
And
香港修例问
on
题，
July
香港在一
8th,
国
the
两
Vice
制下的
President
自治
and
地位
Secretary of State of the US met
等
with
等
the
还有很
leading
多
figure
我就不去念了，
of
占
the
大家时间了。
opposition. Well, I
我想
won't
这些言论
go into more
都有一个共同的特
details
点，
in the interest of
就是为
time.
示威者
Such
撑腰打气，
examples show that these
对香港
actions
是
have
指指点点，
emboldened
横
the
加干涉。
demonstrators and
香港的局势恶化到
made
今天这个地步，
irresponsible remarks on
一
what is
些
happening in Hong
暴力
Kong.
激进分子敢
Some
于肆无忌惮地
radical and violent forces dare to
敢于公然
commit
挑战一国两制的原则
such
底线。
crimes
我想，这与一
brazenly
些西方
and challenge
政客
the
不
bottom
负责
line
任的
of
言
one
论
country and two
与他们的煽
systems.
风点
I
火
think it
是
has
分不开的。
much to
他
do
们对
with
香港的乱局
the support
所做的贡
or the
献
instigation
也
of
实在是
the
不可观。
Western forces. They have done more than enough
中
in
央外事工作委员会
interfering
办
in
公室
China,
主任
in
杨
Hong
洁
Kong's
篪
affairs. Recently,
国务委员外交
Yang
部长王
Jiechi, the head of the Office of Central Foreign Affairs Committee, and State Council and Foreign Minister Wang Yi
全国政协副主席
made
李建
comments
华先生也一针见血地指出，
condemning the
这
foreign
次政治风暴
interference. And
幕后黑手
Vice
是一些敌视中
Chairman
国
of
发展的势力，
CPPC, Tongchiwa,
其根本
also
目的
pointed out
就是要
that
以香港
those meddling
变成
hands
国际博弈
behind
的战场，
such
令香
situation
港
in
变
Hong
成
Kong
反抗中央的基地，
are the
作为牵
forces,
制中国的
anti-China
棋子。
forces. Their fundamental purpose is to turn Hong Kong into
一
a
举道破
battlefield
党的
against
不
the
良
central
居心。
government and use Hong Kong as a
在
pawn
这里呢，我
to
想
check
强
on
调一
China's
点，
development. And such solemn statement has made things very clear. Let me point out that Hong Kong is China's Hong Kong, and Hong Kong affairs tolerate no interference by any foreign countries. Well, we want to call on those politicians who make seemingly decent remarks, but engage in actions that sow the seeds of confrontation and hatred in some society to respect themselves and come to their senses. Their attempts will lead nowhere. The future of Hong Kong, at the end of the day, lies in the hands of the Chinese people, including Hong Kong compatriots. So stop your actions.
谢谢主持人，我是那个香港经济日报的记者。我想请问，就是这个修例风波已经持续了近2个月，然后这个民间表达诉求的方式也是日趋升级。昨天也是发生了风波以来最大规模的这个罢工、罢市、罢课和不合作运动。那以盼这个政府回应民间的这个5大诉求。想问一下，就是中央对此的一个态度。谢谢。
With Hong Kong Economic Times, well, the turbulence surrounding the proposed amendment bill has been going on for 2 months now, with escalating forms of expression of public concerns. And yesterday we have seen the largest such activity, the mass strike and uncooperative movement, asking the government to respond to the 5 major concerns of the public. So what is the response of the central government?
我想请我的同事来回答一下吧。
My colleague will
谢谢
take
您
this
的提问。
question. Thank you for your question.
香港的反对派鼓动市民8月5号参加所谓的
The
3罢，
opposition
就是罢工、罢
encouraged
市、
a
罢
mass
课。
strike
我
on
们也密切地关注这件事情的进展。
August. We follow the
到现在
situation
为止，
closely,
我们来看看
up
他
to
们都
date.
做了什么。
Let's see what they have done.
凌晨和上午，
In the
他们
early
阻塞了
hours
主要的交通，
of the morning
阻止
and
高
in
铁
the
运行，
morning, they
继续
blocked
执行传单的
train
航班的
services,
任务，破坏交通灯，设置路障，甚至
vandalized
建线
traffic lights,
强行
set
瘫
up
痪交通，
blockades,
造成
cut
了
power
多条
lines,
铁线路
paralyzed
道路乱，严
transportation,
重受阻，
and caused serious
避免造成
disruption
大
to
面积的
the train services and
还有
widespread
香港国际机
congestion.
场出现了大量的航班停
At
飞，
the Hong Kong
境外
International
飞机至
Airport,
少有
at least
235个航班，
235 flights were
大量
cancelled.
的商店被迫停业，
A large number of
更
businesses
多的
were
市民无法
forced
正
to
常地上
close,
班。
and many
可以
Hong
说，
Kong citizens
他们
found it
成为了
difficult to
严
go
重
to
影
work.
响了市
So
民的
what
日常
they
生
have
活，
done have
冲
caused
击
a
了香港
serious
的社会的正常的秩序。
disruption to the daily life of Hong
到
Kong
下午，
citizen and the
这些
normal
激进分子
public order.
继续
Then, in the
控制
afternoon,
同时
some
包围
protesters
警署，
repeated their
突
old
击检
trick
查，
to besiege
进
the
行
state,
连
the
串的
police
纵火
headquarters,
等，
committed
造成
arson on several sites,
到
and
晚上，
other acts of
所有
violence.
极少数
In
的
the
极端的
evening,
激进分子
a small number of radical elements
抛入
again
海中。
threw a national flag into the
从
sea.
昨天凌晨到现在，
So
在
from the
不
early
30
hours
小时的
of
时间内，
yesterday
这
to
一连
now,
串的行
in
为，
less than 30
严
hours,
重
they
的
have
两点。
committed a
第一，
series of
反对派搞的这场
activities,
所谓的不合作运动，
and it
所谓
shows
的
2
3罢，
points. First,
根本不是什
the
么正常的
uncooperative
诉求
movement,
表达，
the mass strike, is not a
而
normal
是极
way
端的
of expression of their
暴力
concerns,
犯
but
罪
rather
行为，
an extreme and
是
criminal
严重的
acts
破
of
坏公共
violence.
秩序和
They,
公共
they
利
are
益
a
的
serious
犯罪
violation
行为，
of public order
是挑战一国两制原则
and a
底线，
challenge to
侵犯国家
the
尊
red
严的
line of the one
犯
country,
罪
two
行为。
systems, and affront to national
他们的
dignity.
目的，
So
是
their
想
purpose
捣乱
is
香港，
no other than to
他们的目的是想祸害香
stir
港，
up trouble
他们的
in
目的
Hong
是
Kong,
想
to
毁掉
destroy
香港。
trouble, to destroy Hong Kong.
第二点，
And the second
他们
point
的行为
is
完
that
全不得人心，完全失
their
败。
activities are most unpopular
我觉得
and they are doomed to
这
fail.
个这个所谓不合作运动的组
I
织
think
者
the
有一个非常
so-called
可笑的逻
the
辑，
organizers of the
他们
so-called
认为罢工是通过大面
uncooperative
积的阻塞
movement
交
has a
通，
twisted
使大
logic.
家无法正
That is, they want to prevent people from going to work through this mass strike, to force a scenario of strike. So what strike is this? They try to make it impossible for business to open. So I think this is actually a joke. It's kind of self-deceit. So very few people would respond to such call for mass strike. And at the same time, we see that many Hong Kong citizens chose to advance their time for departure so that they could get to work on time, and some people try to push aside those people in black who blocked the train services. And many Hong Kong citizens condemned their activities. Those people who love the country and love Hong Kong again hoisted the national flag of China yesterday evening. I don't know whether you have noticed that in less than 1 hour, when the national flag was flown into the sea, there was a sentence in the national media that saying that the 1.4 billion Chinese people are all stand bearers. They defend the national flag. So I think they have the Chinese people on their side to defend the national flag and defend national dignity. So I think the scheme of those trouble seekers is doomed to fail. We strongly condemn such activities, that is to stage a gamble with the stable life of the 7 million Hong Kong citizens and the future of Hong Kong as a stake. The central government would under no circumstances allow those troublemakers to plunge Hong Kong into the abyss. We firmly support the strict administration and law enforcement by Chief Executive Carrie Lam and the Hong Kong police. Thank you.
你们好，我是那个英国《泰晤士报》记者唐迪迪，我就想关于那个军队的使用这个问题提几个比较具体的问题。刚才讲到了首要任务是制止暴乱，然后恢复秩序。那现在的情况呢是，苗头并不是特别好。我就有几个具体问题。第一个就想问香港政府现在有没有请求北京，提供卫戍部队的协助？就根据那个基本法上个礼拜杨先生讲到的。 第二个问题就想问，人大常委现在有没有考虑到宣布，就是根据基本法宣布进入一种紧急状态？那有没有考虑到派遣解放军或者内地的警察去协助香港政府？然后第三个问题就是，上个礼拜香港的卫戍部队的司令员陈道祥说到，极端暴力呢事件是绝对不能容忍的。然后呢，上个礼拜也出现了驻港部队的宣传片。最近深圳警方呢？ 也有那种防暴警察的一些演练，就最近几天，我就想知道这些举动，是有哪些，有什么中央想通过这些举动有什么信号想释放出来？谢谢。
With the Times, I have a few specific questions concerning the use of the military force. As you just mentioned, the pressing task is to put an end to the violence and restore public order. But currently, we don't see any encouraging signs. So I have the following questions. First, whether Hong Kong has appealed to the help of central government for the use of its garrison force in Hong Kong SAR, as this question was asked at last week's press conference to Mr. Yang Guang. And second, whether the NPC, the Standing Committee of the NPC, is considering citing the Basic Law to send military forces from the mainland to help the local authorities deal with the current situation and declare a state of emergency. And thirdly, we have heard from Commander Chen Daoxiang saying that no extreme acts of violence would be allowed. And we have seen this official video issued by the PLA, and we have read the report about the riot exercise in Shenzhen. Are these meant as a signal to those elements by the central government?
谢谢。你问了很多很具体的问题。
Thank you.
最后
You
问了一句话，
indeed asked
有什
many
么样重要的信号？
questions. You asked at the end of your
有什么样重
question
要的信
any
号呢？我想用
important
3句话
message
来
or
表示。
signal. Well, I will make 3
我也注意
points
到
in
了陈道祥
response.
司令员的
Well, I've also
讲话。
noticed the remarks
我想
by
我讲3
Commander
句。
Chen Daoxiang.
第一呢，
So let me make
中国
3
人民
points.
解放
First,
军建军92年来
in
的
the
辉煌历程，
92-year
证明了一
history
条
of the PLA,
中国人民解放军
one thing has been
是维护
demonstrated. That is, the
祖国
PLA is a
每
strong
一寸
force
神圣领土
that
安全的
defends every
无
inch
比
of its
可靠、
sacred territory. It
无
is
比
a
强大
force
的力量。
that is strong and
这是第一
reliable.
句话。
I think this is the first point I want to make.
第二句话，
Second,
中国人民解放军既是威武之师，
the PLA
也是文明之师。
is a force of
人民解放
power,
军
but also is a civilized power. It
人民解放军
is under the
依
leadership
法办
of
事。
or command of the Communist Party of China.
谈到驻军，
It
驻
acts
军
in accordance
同样
with law.
依法办事，
With
依
regard
照
to
基本
the
法
garrison
和
in
中
the
法相关
SAR,
规定
it
行事。
follows the law on the
这
garrison
是第二句话。
and also the basic law.
第三句话，
It follows law. This
我
is
们
the
相信
second point I
有
want to make.
中央政
Third,
府坚定不移的
as long
大力
as
支持，
we have the strong support
由
from
包
the
括
central
广
government
大香港同胞在内的全国人民的
and
大
as
力
long
支
as
持，
we have the full backing
香港
from
特区政府
all the
和
Chinese
香
people,
港警队
including those in
完全
Hong
有
Kong,
能力
the
依
SAR
法
government and
惩
police
治暴力犯罪，
are fully capable
恢
of
复社
punishing
会秩序，
those criminal activities
社会
and
安定。
restore public
谢谢。
order and stability. Thank you.
因为我们一会儿还有一场发布会呢，所以
Because
刚
we
才
have an upcoming
和阳光先生商量，再给香港媒体一个机会，再给外国媒体一个提问机会，好吗？我们最后2个提问机会。那要不先这位记者一直在举手。
谢谢，我是凤凰卫视的记者。我们也关注到林郑月娥昨天在香港举行的记者会啊，刚刚发言人你也提到，他在记者会上就说到，最近呢香港正在滑入一个危险的境地，但是他表示自己不会辞职。那么想问一下发言人对他这个表态怎么看？那么中央会不会要求林郑月娥辞职？谢谢。
With Phoenix TV, at yesterday's press conference, Chief Executive Carrie Lam said that Hong Kong is being pushed to the verge of a very dangerous situation, and she also said that she would not resign. So, what's your take on her remarks? Will the central government ask Chief Executive Carrie Lam to resign?
我来回答吧。这个问题我刚才已经谈到了，其实
Actually,
还不
I've
是一次
answered
谈
this
到。
question
那么
more
既然
than
问到了，
once,
那
as
我
a
就
matter
再
of
说
fact.
一遍。
But since you asked this
中央
question,
政
let me
府
repeat my
坚定
answer.
不移的
The central government
毫不
firmly
动摇的
and
支
unswervingly
持林郑月娥行政长官，
supports Chief
反
Executive
对派
Carrie
想
Lam,
让林郑月娥行政长官辞职的图谋，
the scheme of the opposition for the resignation of Chief Executive Carrie Lam will not succeed. Last question for foreign media.
NBC， 好，这位红衣服的男记者 ，Yes。
谢谢，我是 NBC 美国全国广播公司。In other words, can you rule out the use of military force in dealing with the current crisis, protests in Hong Kong? I mean, can you make that commitment not to use the military because you have confidence in the full ability of the Hong Kong police and government to deal with this crisis, or is the military remains an open option? Thank you.
NBC，我的问题是，您是不是说这个完全不可能有这个中国军队介入的这个情况？因为您刚才说，这个对于香港政府以及警方处理应对目前的局势是完全有信心的，所以说是不是军队介入完全不可能，还是说军队介入也是一个选项？
谢谢。我刚才已经回答了这个问题。
Thank you.
回答
Actually,
完
I
以后呢，
answered this
我忘了
question,
说一句话，
but I forgot to add
就是
one
我讲
thing.
的这3点意见
That is
是
the
一个完整的体
3
系，
points I
是
made
完整的。
form
如果
an
还要再多说一
integral
句话的话，我想这样
entity or
中
entirety.
央政府和全国
Maybe
人民
one more word to add. The
的
central
支持
government
对香港繁荣
and
稳定的
the
支持是
Chinese
实实在
people
在的。
have credible or tangible support to Hong Kong. The central government will never allow the unpunished challenge to the one country, two system principle and will never allow any turbulence that will threaten national unity or security that is out of control by the SAR government. So thank you. That's the end of our press conference. Thank you.